Okay, so sometimes you learn about things from like the weirdest places, the weirdest experiences in life, and that's a little bit what this is about. But here's the thing, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the thing to know is that if you want to get people to buy more, and you want to do it in a way that is honest and not sleazy and pitchy and stuff like that, here's a simple trick. And this will absolutely work, I promise you. And here's the thing, like I said, weird places and weird stuff. Because I mean, I'm pretty sure the story I'm about to tell, this isn't something that happens to most people, and it's not probably how your childhood was. But here's the thing, here's what happened with me, and you're gonna see why this matters so much. Because at the end of the day, like the way you do your content and the way you sell stuff is all about structure and kind of the underlying influence behind what you say. And so here's the story though. So when I was a little kid, I mean, it's like only in my family, I would always see movies out of order because the thing is that my dad, he was like so into kung fu flicks. That was his big thing. And honestly, I loved it too. But when a movie is all about kind of the action, it doesn't matter that much if you go and you start halfway through. And so that's exactly what we would do. My dad, he really didn't care if we came in on time or whatever. So, I mean, there would be times we'd watch like the last 15 minutes of a movie and then kind of sit there in the theater and wait for it to start all over again and loop through it to catch up to that point right before it was about to end. And so my whole experience as a child was that all the movies I saw were basically out of order all the time. And so I hated dramas because, well, I mean, as a little kid, so probably I just hated dramas, but I really didn't care much for anything with story. Because what I didn't understand is that most people see movies in a specific order and have a specific experience, and I didn't have that. It was just kind of this jumble where I would start at a random point and it would end at a random point. And here's my point. My point is that when you sell, you have to have a specific order to things. And if you do things out of order, it will not work. And so I'm going to give you something that you can take like to your sales meetings. You can take to presenting on stage. You can use this in your content. I mean, it works all over the place because it's all about saying things in the right way at the right time. That's the key, at the right time. And if you do, you'll be able to sell so much more, and you'll be able to do so honestly. And the beauty of it is it's something where it works invisibly. But here's how it goes, right? So during my sales meetings, one thing that would always happen is you would get to that point at the end where you've got the objections, right? We all know that. You go through, you talk with people, you build up some sort of relationship, and you're feeling good, and then you get to that point and you see if they actually want to buy or not, and that's when the objections and the stalls come in. And so invariably people will say something like, I want to think about it. And then the problem is, no matter what you respond, it feels like you're being pushy. And so you get stuck in that place where you don't want to be the person who corners people and forces them to answer. But at the same time, if you've been through a lot of sales talks, then you know that if you don't find out what's on people's minds, I mean, the odds of getting the business just plummet. And this isn't true just for sales talks. This applies every bit as much when you're doing, for example, a launch sequence and stuff like that, as you'll see in a second. But one day, I decided, you know what? Let me try something a little bit different. Let me see if I can switch things around and find a better way to deal with this. And so what I started doing was, at the beginning of my meetings, early on, I would say to people, hey, I really want to get to a point where you have all the information you need to make a good, solid decision. And so does that sound cool? Basically something like that. And people would always be like, yeah, that sounds perfectly fine. But what I was really doing was I was getting buy-in for them to basically say, okay, at the end, I'm going to give you an answer and I'm going to let you know where I'm at with things, which would avoid the I'll think about it objection. And so that way, when we got to that point, either people wouldn't bother to say it any longer, or if they did, it seemed completely natural when I'd say, well, tell me what's on your mind. And there was no weirdness and pushiness there, and people felt good with it. And so when I started doing that, it just blew my mind, right? I mean, can you see how different things are when you do it this way? It is all about the structure and understanding how to say things at the right point, because I want you to see what's going on here. Like if I walked up to you and said, hey, you want to go to a party? And you say, no. And then I say, but it's a great party. Why would you not want to go to it? I mean, don't you think it's going to be awesome? See, that follow-up is now framed by the original question and the no you just gave me. So in other words, everything I say about it being a great party, it seems like I'm trying to convince you to do it, and it seems like I'm not respecting your no, so I am pushing back against you. And that is going to create this weird tension, and it's going to make you resist everything I say and try to find a reason to reject it. But if we flip-flop things, and instead I were to say, hey, I heard about this awesome party that's coming up. How's that sound? And you're going to be like, oh, that sounds really good. And I say, well, you know what? It's coming up this Friday. You want to go? See, now, when I talked about the party, there was no context framing it. There was no that you had given me that I was pushing back against. And so you're able to just answer honestly and talk about what you think about that party. And so when you say things at the right time, it changes how much resistance comes at you from people's heads. And so let me show you how you could use this for content too. And this is really, really cool. Like, let's pretend you've got some product that you know you're about to sell. I don't know, maybe you've done a series of interviews with some SEO master, and it's going to be this amazing product or something like that. Well, I want you to think about this, right? If you say, here's the thing I've got, and take a look at this guy. This guy's amazing and incredible, and you're going to love him. I mean, everything that you say about this SEO guy, now it is framed by the fact that you are trying to sell someone. And so they are going to interpret that information that way. They're going to resist. They're going to doubt everything. And so what you do instead is you use the exact same process that I talked about with the sales meeting. Instead, you just talk about it ahead of time. Like, let's say you've got a launch. Well, what you want to do is a couple days before the launch, or maybe a week before the launch, whatever, you want to start talking about this amazing SEO person that you met and talked to, and how this information is amazing and it's gold and it changed your life. And what you're doing is you're creating value at that point at a time when people aren't going to have resistance. So they're going to accept it. They're going to feel like you're just sharing information because they don't have context that reframes its meaning. And so they're just going to listen and, internalize it. And then they're going to get curious and get interested, and that's going to create value. And then when you introduce the thing later on, people are going to think, whoa, that sounds amazing. I was just thinking about that the other day when you were talking about it. And that way, you avoid all the resistance. And so that's the approach you want to use. And it really, again, like when you are talking about content, there are basically going to be 3 layers to things. There is going to be your message, and your message is everything in the sense that that's what attracts people to you. That's what builds your audience and gets you your people. There's going to be your tone. That's how you say things, and of course how you feel and your character and everything like that. Big deal, right? But finally, there's this kind of underlying strategy layer, the influence, or whatever you want to call it. But that's the third part, and you need all 3 of these legs to really make content work, to make influence work. And if you don't nail all 3 layers, then they're just not going to come together. And so all the time, I see people struggle because they're not thinking about that psychological influence layer, and they're just thinking, well, here's my offer and it's great, why did you reject it? But what it was they didn't say things in the right way at the right time. And so what I want you to do is I want you to take what we've talked about right now, right here, start using this. I mean, I promise you, this one thing, if you start using it regularly, it is going to get you business. It's that simple. It's really, really cool. And so what you don't want to do, just like to hammer this in, you never want to give people that experience like I had as a kid, like when I went to see those movies where everything is completely out of order. You always want to ask yourself, this information that I'm talking about, how do I use this to frame what people are going to think? And if you keep hitting that idea and you keep working on it, then you're going to get where you want to go. Now, let me tell you about one final thing. Right now, depending on when you're watching this video, there is a good chance there is a challenge going on. It is my Mass Authority Challenge, where I am going to go deep into this influence layer and really talk about how to build authority and trust in a psychological way. So even if you've got no testimonials to your name, even if you're just starting out, it still works. And so what I want you to do is head over to extraboldclass.com and just go there, check out the landing page, and sign up for the challenge. It's free. There's no cost. The only thing I ask is that you go in and you give it your all, because I'm going to be there throughout this challenge every single day, working with you, interacting with everybody, delivering the content, and I am not holding back. I mean, some of this stuff I've only shared in my $1,800 a month inner circle. So this is a big deal. I'm going to just be opening the doors and giving it all that I've got. Again, head over to extraboldclass.com. I'm Spencer Lum, and thank you for being here.